my friends. In the middle of all of what we're living through right now, it's very hard not to be kind of caught up and run downstream in the everyday things that are going on because they're all so dramatic and so unusual and kind of in your face kind of things. I think about this a lot because there are many different kind of levels of reality that we live in that are all concurrent and they're all kind of layered on one on top of each other. And each of them plays an important kind of role in the net kind of experience that we have. And if you're not aware of these different kind of layers, then it's very easy to lose kind of sight if you had it in the first place, but to lose sight of what really is going on. And you will be dependent upon and completely controlled by the other layers that are all involved. So let me try to build it for you very quickly here. And on the bottom layer, if you will, is called the ground. I call it a ground layer. And it's the everyday place where we all kind of live. It is a place that has, it's the most granular of all of these levels because it's the people and the businesses and the families and all the things that we're all familiar with, and that for most people, it is the only place where they live. And they are influenced by the media and their superiors, and whether it's in terms of either a social system or a political system or government or some other kind of thing, they essentially do what they're told. And their perspective, their paradigm is a derivative of what they have been told. They are easily swayed and easily moved and easily influenced to be fearful and therefore controllable. Like I say, most people in the world operate in this kind of space. They take for granted the things that they hear on the media that have been told to them in their educations, in their church or whatever it turns out to be. They take them for granted that they're being told the truth, and their education, if you will, is memorizing what they've been told so that they can repeat it. They can parrot it again to their children or to others. And the whole objective of this is to build a narrative that is relatively simple. And that is kind of has stark differences that say good and bad and fear and otherwise, and yeah, who is winning and who is losing, a lot of binary kind of things in the middle of all of this. And so if you, for instance, spend your time listening to, say, NPR or CNN or Fox News for that matter, then that's the world that you're living in. You're living in this world where there are huge amounts of money and effort and sophistication and capabilities all being poured into generating kind of a narrative that says that you just need to get along and you need to do what you're told and uh, live your life. I'm of the age where I'm increasingly seeing my friends who are dying, passing on, uh, and even people in my community, whether they're friends or not. But you read the obituaries, for instance, in our local paper, and you say, what was the meaning of that life? And certainly in the description that is presented, there is no meaning. They liked the outdoors. They were hunters, and and uh, they rooted for the Steelers. It's simple kinds of things, but that's the kind of world that's at this ground level. Um, there's a second level, though, and the second level is one that I call kind of a political or regional level. And what it gets up to, and it starts in the reasons for living, or the terms, the ideas that define life start to change as you go up and this next layer up. And these and and they become more obscure. That is to say, it becomes less obvious what, in fact, they're trying to accomplish. You can make the case at the ground level that there was very little kind of big picture, so that trends. I mean, you get surprised by all of the any big changes within the system. As you move up, they become more sophisticated about somewhat more about the trends, and they follow it. And so you would find, business leaders and politicians and such that would naturally fall into this kind of a situation. But and they're in the business of essentially they're the direct kind of controllers of the people down at the ground level. They are the ones who, on a day-to-day basis, are the employers or the bosses, if you will, and who are the professors or the whatever. And they and their perspective is bigger. Um, in general, they're probably more educated. And so having perhaps a larger percentage that have gone to either college or university, they have a kind of a bit of a bigger perspective. But nevertheless, they are consumed by, surrounded by all of the media and the other kind of inputs and that are principally driving and influencing the people down below. They just have a larger kind of perspective. They've got a more sophisticated perspective about kind of economics and and maybe even politics. You would find a lot of people and staffers on the hill, on Capitol Hill here in the United States that would fall into this kind of category. They've got, bigger ideas about changing the world or whatever, policy changes or other kinds of stuff, but they are still very much within the box and constrained by the ideas that came out of the college or the university or uh, where they came from. They're very limited in terms of the options that are available to them. They're still very much influenced by the level that's above them. And the level that's above them, I call the systems level. And the systems level is kind of like national and global leaders and people of that kind of ilk. These are folks who necessarily have a larger kind of perspective on the world. They operate in bigger spaces and everything. But they are the principal ones who are driving the layers down below in terms of the narrative and the ideas and so on. This is the level where the intelligence community exists. This is the level where the people who have this, like I say, this larger perspective about what they think is going on and what they want to happen. You can watch this. I mean, you can kind of suss this out in trying to make sense out of the policies of the present American administration, and or the reactions, the international geopolitical reactions between Putin and Europe and the rest of the world. These folks have this bigger perspective, and again, their objectives are masked, increasingly more so. I mean, down one level more, people are trying to make money. They're running businesses, kind of. Medium to small size businesses and so on. And, they're trying to just get by and make the thing work. You get up to the next, to this systems kind of level, and now they're trying to influence the whole system. And whether it's in the political sphere or whether it's in economic terms or whether they're big bankers or whatever it turns out to be, their whole perspective is necessarily different than everybody down below, lower in the pyramid, if you will, almost. And again, their objectives are less clear. They become far more uh, far more masked in terms of what they're trying to do. There's a lot more kind of lying and that kind of stuff because they are whatever their objective is, whether it's power or money or influence in other kinds of ways. If it was clear what they really were trying to do, then those people down below would not respond well to their direction and to their so-called kind of leadership. And so, but this is where the intelligence community, for instance, in particular, uh, the alliances of those at this level of the systems level are really quite profound. And in the case of the intelligence community, they literally run the media on the planet. And in so doing, what they do is they define the narrative that's below, all the way to all the levels below. That narrative is related to the objectives, the bigger objectives and things that they're trying that they have that they're not really telling you about. There's very little truth that shows up down at the operating space, down on the ground, because the objectives and the goals of those that are higher are kind of under the table. There's often two or three levels of objectives up at this level. There's the thing that they're trying to sell that's in public. I remember when I was working at the White House that I'd be in briefings and meetings that where something would happen, and I'd sit and watch what happened, and then there would uh, on the New York Times the next morning there'd be an article about that meeting, and it would be completely wrong because what happened is that the objective of the people that were in the meeting was to manipulate the message such that those below and throughout the system, lower in the system, and maybe other across the system did not understand what they were doing. And so truth is a victim in all of this process as you go down. And it's not enough that just there's big business and bankers and everybody are playing in this space, but they too are then subordinated to a higher level, which I would call the controllers, if you will. And the controllers, at one level, at the highest level, are these other dimensional entities that called Archons or Jinn or whatever you want to call them. And these controllers have their own set of agendas and their own objectives. And, most, the ones that are most influential, uh, I think it's important to say that these groups, whether you call them Jinn or Archons, are not unidimensional. That there's some of them that are really quite helpful and friendly to humans, and but there are some who are very much organized and oriented around eliminating humanity on this planet. Their position is that they've got here first. They kind of own the place, and that we are kind of interlopers, if you will. And so using whatever capabilities that they are driving the system from the top, and they are doing that through a very small hierarchy that are or a small layer or sublayer that is families. There's 7 or 8 or families that almost nobody, the names of whom are not familiar at all to any of us, but they have these big long bloodlines and so on, and they are again, they're subservient to the people up above, to the entities up above them, and they then are the principal um, equity holders on the planet. It's said that these families are trillionaires, and that they're the principal folks who are the shareholders of BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street and the other major private equity companies who are the principal owners of most of the businesses and the assets on this planet. And so and uh, the thing that's important about this is that if you do not see and consider the fact that this is a multi-layered system and that there are directions and objectives that are driven down from the top from uh, ultimate objectives that are in some cases really quite detrimental to humans, then you have no idea what's really going on. The whole idea, of course, is that to make things happen down at the bottom level such that the individuals at the bottom are completely kind of consumed in sports and entertainment and marijuana, yeah, beer, whatever. I don't know what all the kind of things that we all are familiar with. Games come to mind, whether they're athletic games or whether they're video games. There's these ways to just use your time to no objective and no value. And and so um, it's really interesting because these different layers, they give themselves away on a regular basis about what they're doing. And it's really kind of easy because if, for instance, you saw, and I talked a little bit about this before, but all of the uproar about tariffs after Trump. Well, first of all, you get this common, immediate kind of response across all aspects of the media. And in many cases, they are using the same phrases and the same words. And you can't help but look at that and say, this is contrived and this is not natural. And particularly when when the tariffs have not even gone into and they've become active yet in many cases, and they they're all fluid because Trump keeps changing his mind depending upon where the pressure shows up. And yet there is this kind of uproar about that. Now, that's the case. You can walk yourself around COVID or any of the woke agendas and so on, and you will see that they they have the same kind of characteristics. They have the same phrases, the same things. They are mobilized rapidly around times of opportunity, and you could say the same thing about false flags. These initiatives to kill or kill or maim, or in other ways drive fear into the system. All of they come on a regular basis. They have a structure and an organized kind of momentum to them. And so what this is, so if you are going to navigate through this space going forward, by the way, all of these things are going to become increasingly kind of shrill and kind of blatant and in your face. If you're going to navigate this, what you have to keep is this kind of, if you will, a vertical perspective that is keeping in mind all of the levels of what's going on and who the players are and what they're trying to do. And what you necessarily do is you discount a lot of things down at the lower level, because what you know is that those kinds of events are being orchestrated for quite different reasons than it seems apparent, but quite different reasons at a higher level. Now, uh, I I'm suggesting all of this only because, as I just alluded to, is that this whole system is going to ratchet up, and this whole environment is going to be increasingly uh, uh, dis I don't know, dystopian, erratic, unpredictable, chaotic. You name what it is, and because for lots of other kinds of reasons, not least of which is that there are big changes that are happening up on very high levels. The I watched, for instance, the other day, Dick Allgaier, who is one of the foremost remote viewers on the planet, had a little kind of bit that he did that was to kind of promote his program with his four remote viewers, and he said, "Let me tell you what we talk about here," and he built the hierarchy of who runs the planet from the top down, and he says the Pope runs the planet. The Pope is the senior human in the system, And then it has cardinals and things, but then there are a couple of different levels, and then it works its way down to politicians, and the president is down on the bottom of this whole thing, and takes direction from the Pope. And uh, if you're interested in that, I'd encourage you to look it up, because he did a nice kind of explanation about that, and says nobody can talk about this, or we'll talk about it. Uh, but we do that at this future forecasting group that he runs. Well, that's an example, I think, of looking at an event that is happening, like the death of the Pope, and seeing this in far bigger, higher levels, variegated kind of way, and realizing that this is not just an elderly religious leader who has died, and now they're going to look for another one. That there are that these guys play a kind of masked kind of roles that almost nobody knows about, but that the policies and the objectives uh, are the ones that you see down on the ground, and they're not kind of organic in terms of how they operate. This, by the way, has served me quite well, because what you can, if you are sensitive to these different levels, what you can see where the message is coming from. You can see essentially, and then if you have an idea about what their objectives are at the different levels, then you can understand the strategy, if you will, and where this might be going, and therefore how you might and should respond to it all. So we'll come back and talk to you again next week. So take care.